What's going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and this is where we kind of focus in on skill acquisition of being in the zone, the mental focus, which we'll talk about today, and other various training zones. And if you are new to the podcast, we have different segments. So if you see it where it says rants, that's just me going on and venting about hot topics or calling out some BS in the industry. And then the full-length interviews are when we have guests on, experts, athletes, coaches alike, to be able to help them express how they help guys get in the zone or what their zone is, particularly in the sport of baseball. And then the mental minutes, which is what we're going to have today, is that quick mental game hack to help elevate your performance. And then also deep dive educational explorations into the small intricacies of the game, just learning and growing as coaches or as a player, whatever you are listening in, or maybe even it's a parent or someone who's just hungry for knowledge. But if you have any other questions or topics or guests, please submit that in the zone podcast 123 at gmail.com. But without further ado, we're going to get right into this mental minute. And I've done this before. I've talked about this subject in the past, but it's a common reoccurring thing that I'm seeing here through several athletes, especially whenever they have high expectations for themselves. I myself included, is that fear of failure, right? So, and again, it's not saying, hey, I'm afraid that I'm going to fail. It's almost as if you're not expecting or being too naive to think that you won't fail, right? And so there's a difference between the two, whereas you're like, okay, hey, if I fail, if I load the bases, if I get shelled, right, then what? Or, hey, I go in a 3-2 count, then what? Right? Whatever the situation might come about, you have to prepare yourself and know that not everything's going to go your way, right? And even if you do fail, you shouldn't see it as a failure, right? Failing, the verb, is not the actual like, oh, I am a failure as a identity as a person. That's not, they don't coincide with each other, right? I think of failure really just more of a feedback. Okay, hey, what did I do wrong? What can I do differently next time? And here's our game plan going forward to fix that, right? Or maybe it's feedback from the lack of work that you've put in, right? This could go for many different things. For guys, it's like, hey, why is the scale on the scale like not moving? I'm trying to lose weight or I'm trying to gain weight. Well, it's probably feedback based on what you're eating and the consistency of how you're eating over a course period of time, right? Or, hey, I have these really high expectations. I didn't get, this 300 strikeout, or, name any kind of stat that you want. You didn't bat 300. You didn't strike out. You didn't do this. Find something that you can control. That's something that's going to be more of a goal. So it's that, hey, was I mentally present every single pitch? Or when I stepped in the box, was I mentally present every single at bat? Or you're out in the field. Was I mentally present every single time a ball was being thrown and I was ready to react and respond to whatever the play might be? I'm thinking ahead, where if there's a runner on second, I'm like, okay, I'm in the outfield. I'm getting a ground ball. I'm pumping in slow or hard ground ball. I'm doing a nice little crow hop and I'm pumping that thing to home, right? If that guy's rounding third and he's trying to score on me, I'm making sure that I'm ready to have that nice little crow hop and make sure that he doesn't have a chance, right? I'm thinking ahead of that already in my head. Or maybe it's something along the lines of like, okay, hey, that last at bat, he got me with a curveball. He probably thinks that I'm struggling with curveballs. So we're going to make sure that he doesn't beat me with that curveball. A bunch of different ways on how you can go about this. Or even outside of the actual game aspect in the actual training, are you preparing yourself to be in certain situations, right? And this is where I have a tug of war with certain coaches, mostly, I guess you could say, strength coaches or performance coaches, who try to have everything super perfect in every single little thing that an athlete does. But honestly, I think it's a perfect place to cultivate and help them fail in something, right? So if they're going to try to jump over a hurdle, for example, and they're trying to do it, and for whatever reason, they can't seem to get over that hurdle. They keep failing. They keep running into the hurdle. Hey, let's maybe lower it a little bit. Don't have too high of an expectation, like I was talking about before, or an unattainable height for them to jump over that hurdle. Let's move it down, see if they're able to jump over one height. Okay, cool. Then we'll just move it up a little bit more. Move it up a little bit more, right? So have that slow incremental progress versus going from point A of being, very, very minimal to then skyrocketing. And that's what happens whenever mentally you have your high expectations of what you already have. Let's say you were batting 150 last year. Okay, going from 150 to 300 for your total season batting average is probably a bit of a stretch. Let's try to get to 200 first. And if you do more, awesome. That's great, honestly. But I think it has to be a little bit more. And I don't think you need to be realistic. I think long term, you do need to have some unrealistic expectations for yourself. But in the short term, right? It's like, oh, I went 0 for 3. Great. Next game, let's go 1 for 3. Then 2 for 3. Don't expect to go from 0 for 3 to 3 for 3 every single game, right? There's, again, a lot of nuance to this as well, but there's also a awesome clip that I got. And again, not a baseball guy, but I think you guys will enjoy this since the Super Bowl is coming up, of Christian McCaffrey. And I'm going to go ahead and share that clip with you guys here on the screen. Let me know your thoughts.
You don't really want to prepare to fail, but you should think about it. When you understand what the worst thing that can happen is, and you mentally prepare for that, and you go over in your head, who do you want to be when something bad is going to happen? Because it's naive to think it's not, especially in the NFL. You can then surrender. And I don't mean give up. I mean surrender the uncontrollables and completely lock in and be free. Free from pressure that you put on yourself, free from pressure from other people, and free from the worries of failing.
Boom. That's it. I love that clip. Honestly, like if any of you are football fans, Mr. Christian McCaffrey is a absolute beast, right? And he's 100% right. When you surrender the uncontrollables, the things that you can't really, have total control over, the pressure comes off. Whether that's pressure that you're putting on yourself, or pressure from outside expectations. For him, I'm sure he's hearing a lot of things in the back of his head of like, oh, hey, you got to do this. You got to do this. You have to get this amount of yardage for, my draft team or whatever. Like he's got to learn how to drown that out and release all of those expectations of what anyone else thinks of him or what he himself personally has put on himself. Now, again, releasing the pressure is not the same thing as releasing high expectations for yourself and your standards of how you go about doing things. Okay. Let me reiterate that. Releasing the pressure off of yourself is not lowering your standard of really the quality of what you do, right? So I can go through a pressure-free day, but I'm still going to hold myself the expectation of, hey, I'm still going to get my training in. I'm still going to be able to do this walk. I'm still going to be able to make sure that all my athletes are taken care of at a high level, right? Those are expectations that I personally have for myself. Again, for an athlete, it's like, hey, I'm coming in here. I'm making quality throws. I'm physically present every single thing that I'm doing. I get my training in. I'm hitting all of my macros, whatever the list might be. And I think it's huge for you guys to even if you don't have a trainer, you don't have anyone helping you. And this is for players and coaches alike. And this idea is really from Andy Frisella, was talking about having a power list, right? Or maybe you can use the reminders on your phone, but you got to have something that you check off every single day. Hey, did I do this? Did I do this? Are these the critical tasks that I'm going to have to do in order to help me get to the next level? Right? Whether that's as a player or, hey, I need to get more mobile. Great. Did you do all the mobility stuff throughout every single day of the week to help you get to that next level? If you did, awesome. And if you're still failing, you're still not improving, then it's time to go back and reassess and find out, hey, what am I doing that may not be either as good quality, or two, maybe we need to reconsider this whole game structure altogether. And if you don't have a coach to help you out with that, again, shameless plug, you guys are more than welcome to apply to Ink Sports. For me and my business partner, Rob Blanc, we are definitely one of those guys that help assess and find out where you are on that map and bring you into that. So again, don't think of failing as a death sentence, but also don't think that releasing pressure off of yourself is lowering your expectations. But that's all I got for you guys today for this mental minute, and stay in the zone.